Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend, my mentor, someone who's made a huge, huge difference in my life. Mr. Ken Page is with us today. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Darla. I'm so glad to be here, and the feeling is mutual.
I can't wait to dive in and share with people about your brilliant work. So, first, let me just say a little bit about Ken. And then I have a personal story to share before I even get started. So, Ken Page is a renowned psychotherapist and leading voice of hope and wisdom for everyone seeking to find and cultivate healthy, lasting love. He's the host of the Deeper Dating podcast and the author of the best-selling book of the same name. I got to read the subtitle because it's so good. How to drop the games of seduction and discover the power of intimacy. Ken has a program called the Deeper Dating Intensive, which I have taken and I'm sure we'll talk about. He's been featured in the Oprah magazine, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Cosmopolitan, The Advocate, and more. And he's so passionate about helping people understand the search for love as one of the greatest spiritual adventures in life. I think of business as the greatest spiritual adventure. That's my filter. So I completely, deeply resonate with your work, Ken. And I really wanted you to be here because the number of times that you used the phrase in the intensive that I took with you, your field has shifted. And I was just like, yes, exactly. And that was really what I came for. So I'm going to ask you about your story of how you got into this. But first, I want to just share, people who follow me know I got divorced a few years ago. And I went to this retreat when I got divorced. And I made a friend there. And that friend ended up being like a very similar attraction of deprivation, which I'm sure we'll talk about what that means, Ken, ended up being kind of a similar deprivational energy for me. And of course, I invited her into my home to be my roommate and like kind of took the place of the relationship that I was leaving, which was in retrospect interesting and funny, and all of that happened during our intensive. One of the gifts she gave me is she gave me Deeper Dating. She told me about the book and she thought that it would be helpful to me. And so I ordered it immediately. And she and I were going to do a book study. And so I started reading it and doing the exercises. And I don't think she ever read it. She just recommended it to me. And it was just the best gift. And so I started to check you out online and I saw that you had this program. We had a email exchange and it was like, okay, when you're really ready, here's what we're going to do. And I just remember from the moment I got on the phone with you, I felt your, what I call in my world, compassion magic.
Mm,
And I just felt it so deeply, your deep love for me immediately, but it tear up your love of your work. And I'm so grateful that I stepped into your container. So I know we'll get into your philosophies and all of that, but this 6-month container really helped me heal at such a deep level from the loss of my marriage,
mm,
the pattern that had attracted it. And I could have never in a million years predicted what that was. And you were able to pull it out of me through the exercises and the questions that you asked. So I
mm.
remember where I was sitting and the moment my field shifted, and I'm just forever grateful.
I
I've
remember that
since
too.
I've moved to Colorado. I have a beautiful view of the mountains. I'm in a relationship that's definitely an attraction of inspiration and
Yay.
just exploring and learning. So thank you
Mm,
for saying
mm,
yes to this. Thank you for your work in the world. And yeah, I'll just be quiet for a minute.
mm. That story means so much to me. It was just a treasure working with you, even from our very
Mhm.
first visit. It was like so clear that we would connect and work together. And your openness to this work and just the gift of your presence has been amazing for me. And really, we became friends. And I have loved working with you. So thank you so much. And you've brought so many people to the intensive, and I thank you for that as well. So many wonderful people.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully some more. So I for those who can't see, I wore my heart sweater today and I have my heart here and I see deeper dating behind you. Love is the best spiritual adventure. Tell
Hmm.
me about what brought you to that.
I think this is so rich because love was the thing that I really felt like I couldn't do. I really felt like there was like an it that you had to have to find love, and
Mm,
I didn't have that it. And I kind of put it to in my head that I had to lose weight and become
mm,
more confident. I would say those are the two things. Like I had to be more confident and I had to lose weight. Which are all the stuff like the dating, all the so much dating advice tells you stuff
yeah.
like that. So that was what I believed. I had swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. And I was one of these people that was really looking for love, like
Mm,
so hard all the time. I did so much to find a relationship, and I
mm,
couldn't. I just couldn't. Like nothing lasted more than 6 weeks ever. 6 weeks was my limit. And then I went into therapy, and a year became my limit, which was huge progress for me. And what I discovered as a therapist, as a teacher, at the same time as I was learning it in my own life, is that the most intimate parts of me were the parts that were most likely lead to real intimacy. And those were parts of me that, as a gay man, as a really sensitive human being, were parts that, and I got teased and bullied a lot and didn't fit into the world. So, those things that I felt the most ashamed of, I learned to champion and I discovered were my soul, were my gifts. First, I discovered that my clients wanted that stuff, but I knew that like a partner wouldn't want those things. And then
mm,
I discovered that as I embraced those parts of myself, my field shifted and I became attracted to people who were good for me
mm,
more and more.
mm,
And then people who were good for me, when they became attracted to me, I didn't want to run for the hills quite as much. I still wanted to run for the hills, but not quite as much. So this journey I discovered was a universal journey, that the parts of ourselves that are the most tender, that we kind of feel the most awkward around, are where our soul gifts lie. What an amazing thing that we are built that way, that spiritual adventure, that the very parts of ourselves we thought we had to airbrush or fix or get rid of or didn't fit into the world were the key. The key. And
yeah.
that changed my life. And I built a program, a theoretical framework, and an entire path around this work of discovering our core gifts. And in the meantime, my dating life changed. In the meantime, still not having found a relationship, but knowing I was growing a lot, I felt called to become a dad. I was just following
Mm,
whatever my next wisdom steps felt like. They were like
mm,
love was calling me, and I was not really making it in terms of finding that partner, but
mm,
I felt called to become a dad. And so then that was a deep, rich detour where
mm,
I adopted my child, my daughter, uh, from Cambodia as an infant. And that was how I met my husband, who was at the Provincetown Family Week with his daughters, and we fell in love. Who knew that this kind of circuitous route would end up? I mean, it's
mm,
always so surprising, but
right.
um, I had learned to love my goodness by then, and I found a person who was truly good, who loved my
Mm,
goodness. And it was quite a journey to
mm.
get there. So that's my story. And I teach as I learn.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, yeah.
Same. First of all, the what I call your sourced magic led you to adopting. You call it your inner mentor, right?
Mm,
Really resonate on that. And like we don't know where that's leading us.
yeah,
And how
yeah.
did you find the courage to trust that to because that's a non-traditional route? Like how did you know that was true for you?
I'll tell you, like, I have had moments of feeling called in certain directions. I haven't felt that frequently, but I have felt it. And I felt called to become a dad. I had actually the moment that this happened was I had seen Almodovar's incredible movie All About My Mother,
Mm,
um, which is a powerful movie. I'm not going to give away the plot, but
mm,
the movie was over. And I felt this really strange feeling inside. I didn't know what it was. So I went off to the corner when the movie ended of the movie theater and I closed my eyes and I said, "What is this feeling?" And it came to me, I want to become a dad. Just hit me. And I left that corner. I went to my friend. I said, "I want to become a dad." And he was like, "All right, let's get in the car. Let's talk." Oh my God. And and I did. 9 months later, I brought my child
wow.
home, and that child ended up leading me to my husband and my other daughters. And so I guess it's this thing. And Darla, this is something that I know you live too. I think that's a way we're like
Mhm,
sibling souls. Like, okay, I feel this
mhm.
call. It's really paradigm shifting, but I feel it, so I'm going to follow it.
Yeah.
And I think you and I are really similar in that way.
Yes. Well, and like I just want to acknowledge that you had the wisdom to take yourself to the corner and ask, what is this feeling?
Yeah, yeah,
And, I mean, that just gets into my world of passion of making space for your magic. We're
yes.
so crowded all the time, and that you knew to check in, that it was important to listen to is just amazing to me.
Oh, yeah, and I will say something about that. Spiritual practice. If I hadn't done so many years of my spiritual practices, I wouldn't have heard that. And just to share the next part of the story is that years later, like 7 years later, I went to Gay Family Week and I met Greg the first day. And
Mhm.
I was really excited, and he was really busy with his daughters, and he like didn't really notice me. And I had done all this work on myself, so I knew, okay, he's not interested. Damn, I'm really bummed, but that's how it is. And I let that be. And in the middle of that week, I had one of those few precious experiences where I woke up like bolt upright at 3 in the morning with this message. I could almost hear it. And middle of the night. And the message was, if you don't make this happen, you're gonna lose something amazing. You've got to make it happen.
Wow.
So the next morning, I was on the steps of where we all gathered for this particular event, pretending that I was just sitting there and running into him by accident. And that led to all the different things it led to, and it led to our
Wow.
being together for 15 years. And so spiritual practice, I believe in it so much. And
Hmm.
maybe even in the course of this episode, I could share this inner mentor practice
Hmm.
that I adore and love, and kind of led me to so many different things. But yeah, so for everybody, the tapping into your wisdom, what that happens is you learn to hear those whispers, you make space for them, and those whispers change our lives. So that's the beauty, the magic of this
Yes.
spiritual intimacy journey, is listening to those messages that reform us and reshape us and soften our hearts and make us get more adventurous.
So good.
That's the magic.
So you said a lot in your story around, oh, if I'm just more confident and I lose weight and I do all the external things, then I'll be good enough or be the right person. And there's so much advice like that about changing yourself. And yet your approach is the opposite of that,
It's the
and
opposite. It's
really
the
looking
opposite.
at your gifts. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, can you talk about how did you discover that?
Yeah, well, so gay man growing up in a culture where like a very typical kind of masculinity was the gold standard. It was like the coin of the realm,
Mhm.
and it was not what I had or who I was. Growing up in a family of Holocaust survivor parents where toughness and survival were
Mhm.
like so absolutely central, and I was someone who was, so highly sensitive. My
Yeah.
mom brought me to the doctor to see if I had a tear duct issue because things made me cry so
Oh,
easily
honey.
when I was little. So, these were things I learned to be really, really ashamed
Right.
of. And so I tried really hard. And I have to say, I don't think I ever got to act really confident because I'm more of a questioner. That's like how I live, how I breathe, that's who I am.
Mhm.
That's like my essence. And questioners don't walk around confident. We walk around like in a more of a kind of like
Mhm.
connection to mystery. So, but I got really buff. I will say that. I got like really buff. I lost weight. I got really muscular. That is not what made the difference. I had more sex. I did have more sex and maybe more first dates, but I'm not even, yeah, more first dates, but not an inch, not a centimeter closer to
Mhm.
love. The journey that made that happen was learning to honor my core gifts, my soul, my essential nature. And when I
Mhm.
did that, there's it's this blueprint. This is this magic blueprint in the world of intimacy. The degree to which we treasure our deepest, most innermost qualities is the degree to which we become sexually and
Mhm.
romantically attracted to people who are good for us. The degree to which we're
Yeah.
ambivalent about those qualities and we feel like, well, if the world loves them, then they're okay. The degree to which we do that, we get sexually and romantically attracted to people who can't honor us for who we
Mhm.
are. So, this shift that we do inside, this beautiful shift of learning to champion our most inner nature and lead with it, and then get like really discriminating, like with whom, when I do that, do I feel safe and seen with? When we make
Yeah.
that our adventure, it heals our hearts, it reorganizes our being, and it leads us to healthy love. And this is a miracle. And it's a miracle that you've experienced because you kind of like signed up because you're all about truth and authenticity and vulnerability.
Mhm.
So hearing these messages, you were like a duck in water. Like you were like, yep, that's my jam.
Yeah, but I have so much to say about this because the people who are listening are likely transformational leaders in some way. They're coaches, they're healers, like those are the people that I work with. And so for me, when I was given deeper dating and I started reading it and I'm reading about the core gifts and I'm like, oh, this is really good. And I'm underlining things and doing the exercises. I had a little notebook and the concept isn't complicated, right? It's like, and so I'll give you my interpretation and then you can correct it if it needs it. But it's like the way that your gifts were dishonored in your family, you look for someone who similarly dishonors them because that's what's comfortable and because it feels safe. And then, to me, in my world, when I think about people stepping into their magic, it feels really unsafe because it's not practiced and it's unfiltered and all of that. And so we like
Mm.
to stay with people who judge it so that we stay safe. So
Yes.
I'm reading that, right? And it all makes sense. And I'm doing the exercises. And yet we can get that intellectually, but there's something about the way you hold it and the way that you bring people present to their gifts that I don't think is as accessible to people if they're just doing exercises in their journal. So it's like, yes, I was a duck to water, but I still couldn't see what I couldn't see, right?
Mm.
Like I do this a lot, right? It's hidden from our view, the thing that we're holding that's filtering everything, we can't see it, right?
Mm. Mm.
But you could see it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, let's talk about that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Sometimes the movie The Sixth Sense where the kid said, I see dead people. I
Mhm.
feel like I see gifts. That's like a gift I have.
Yeah.
I can see
Yeah.
gifts and I'm very grateful to the people who like help cultivate that in me. But what I'm trying to do and working on all the time is creating a framework where I'm less needed for that, that the
Mhm.
formula moves people through. But I haven't gotten there yet. There's actually going to be a research study on my work, which I'm super excited
Oh.
about around this core gift work. But yeah, there's something that I do and people who teach this work do of like developing these gift eyes, and there's like a series
Mm.
of questions that you can ask that can help you develop those gift eyes. But yeah, that's that counterintuitive thing that I'm so grateful for my ability, like in the intensives, to do this deep coaching with people. I haven't yet found a way to make that happen without that
Mhm.
personal coaching.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember what the exercise was. So let me just share a little bit with people. We're in the intensive. It's weekly for 6 months, which was a big commitment in itself, right? To show up for yourself like that. And I was hosting a retreat. And so I had a retreat Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and our classes were Thursday nights. And so I had to, end the retreat. I sent them off to do something and I went and did my class. And you had us do a journaling exercise and in the end, circle things. And I remember just struggling with what I had circled in my notebook and, raising my hand to ask a question because what I had circled was the word safety.
Yeah.
And I couldn't comprehend how safety was a gift. And, I'll just give a little example in my relationship that I had ended. One example, something I'm so grateful I don't have in my life anymore, Ken, is Kimmy would sell my things without my consent. Like
Oh,
she loved buying and selling things and having yard sales and all of these things. And so she would, all of a sudden, some of my things would be gone. And then she said, well, you didn't use that anyway. And it was such a like visceral feel. And it didn't matter how many times I said, this
uh,
would keep happening. And it was, whatever, we could go into the psychology of that. But um, safety wasn't present just in a very basic sense. And
yes.
so, here I've circled safety and I'm like, I don't understand how that's a gift. Do you remember what you said?
I remember. I don't know if I remember the moment really clearly, and I know that there's a way that you, in your very, I remember the moment, you radiate safety. There is a quality of
Mm,
goodness and safety that you radiate. So I remember seeing
mm,
that and reflecting it back to you,
making me
and
tear
and
up,
how
Ken.
mm, mm. Yeah, there's that, it's kind of angelic quality, and it's a quality of safety that you hold, that you create, that you give. And I feel that. So I was able to just reflect that to you. And
Yeah.
I remember it was like a dam burst for you at that.
I could just when your brain kind of can't function, it goes blank when things are rearranging. It was one of those
Mm.
moments. At least that's how transformation feels for me. And I asked you, I'm like, how is that a gift though? And you said, okay, you're leading retreat, right? Like, do you create safety for your clients? And I was like, yeah. Do you think they value that? Yes. I love this part. You said earlier, my clients appreciated my gifts, but I didn't know how to treasure them in relationship. And so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have that same experience.
yeah,
When you
yeah.
asked that, I said, yeah, definitely. Like I'm like a mama bear for the safety of the container. It never occurred to me that that could be a gift in a relationship.
Mm, mm.
And it felt literally like a liability. Like given my upbringing and the way I was kind of dragged around to different places and we moved and various things, it was like any request for safety was criticized, right? It was just like
Yeah.
baggage. And
Mm,
so
mm.
I couldn't comprehend how that someone would like that about me, that I wanted safety. And you said, imagine having a partner who likes safety as much as you do. And then something clicked for me about being able to have that and celebrate that.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that moment. And with that shift in your field, with that shift in self-organization, that this soul quality of yours then became precious to you in your intimacy life. You found a relationship like that.
Yeah. It was so wild, Ken. I mean, total. total intuitive moment. So that was around October. And then in November, I was leading my event that I do on Zoom. And so we set up a stage in my house and I have a video crew come in and so Alex was my video crew. I've known him for 9 years and he's done all these events for me in different videos and all of that. He'd done all of the events. We'd never been attracted. I was with a woman, like it was very confusing, as you know. um, but I remember I was actually talking about this transformation at the event, kind of sharing the story about safety and going through the event. And then there was a moment like halfway through where I looked at Alex and I felt him, so like how safe I feel with him and how he was supporting
Oh,
me.
I
And
have
it was like,
chills. I have chills.
it just clicked like
Ah,
that's what. And then I had all of the stories about, well, I can't, like he's a man and we have an age difference, we live in different places, like there's nothing that makes sense about this, but I knew that the feeling I felt was safe. And yeah, so it's been just amazing exploring being in relationship with someone who feels safe, who values safety. Yeah, it's opened up so many things. I haven't even caught you up on all of that.
what an amazing story. What a journey. Yeah, that moment where you looked at him and you said, "Oh, he's safe." There's a feeling of safety.
Yeah.
And I want to say something about that because there's research about this, really interesting research,
Mhm.
this concept called the principle of instrumentality, which in the field, the real academic field of research around attraction talks about this concept, which is that if someone matches what the goal is that you're looking for, you're more likely to notice them and be attracted to them. And so, but what I think also happens is you're more likely to have mutual attraction with someone like that. That's not in the research as far as I know, but it's something I've seen with the many people I've worked with. And so you shifted and then all of a sudden you saw this quality in him and eros and romance or whatever it is that opened up for you at that
Yeah.
moment opened up because you were aligned with that. And this is the story that I hear from people who write to me. This is the like biggest story that I hear from people who, write to me to share their experiences or tell me their experiences. It's the experience of shifting focus, all of a sudden recognizing someone's kindness, goodness, safety. And
Yeah.
because of the work that they did, all of a sudden, boom, something opens up and they're attracted and they're interested. And they say to me, "This is not someone I ever would have thought of before." But now all of a sudden, all these feelings are there because we have realigned. And, what a beautiful thing that is. And then the other kind of attraction, those are what I call attractions of inspiration. The other kind of circuitry we have, which is like very, very compelling, is attractions of deprivation, which are where the person reminds us in some ways of the most painful qualities of our primary caregivers. And our ego wants to go back to the scene of the crime. That person becomes desirable because they're loving us wrong. And it reminds us of the ways that we've been loved wrong. And then our goal becomes to get them to love us right, because then that means the world works. But it doesn't work. It's kind of a repetition of pain. Whereas when we become aligned with these soul qualities, so much shifts,
Mhm.
so much shifts.
Our goal becomes to get them to love us right,
Yeah,
like to
yeah.
somehow fix what was missing.
Yeah, exactly. And Harville Hendricks, who's a brilliant theoretician, he says that like the people we're the most crazy, like sick attracted to, like we feel like all these things that are like not so great, but they're really compelling. It's because they were unconsciously drawn to the worst characteristics of our primary caregivers reflected in them. And we want to get it fixed. Which doesn't
Yep.
mean that relationship can't work if both parties want to. But when we do the inner
Right.
work first to upgrade our own system, we start getting attracted to people who love us for who we are. That's
Yes.
amazing that the world is built that way.
Yeah. When my marriage was ending, I stayed really open in the beginning, right? I experienced some significant betrayal and I stayed open, like, okay, is there something in me I can shift
Mm,
such that this
mm.
would shift? And truly, I feel there's a way she took advantage of knowing that I'm like that,
Yeah, yeah. Yep,
that I'm
yep,
that kind of
yep.
person. That could probably be
Yes.
a whole other conversation. But I feel good about that. I stayed open and got myself in a place in my heart of knowing what I wanted and then presented it, right? Like, this is really what I want. And I had a
Right.
great coach who helped me through that, those like that
Yeah.
initial stage. And then ultimately there wasn't a willingness to shift on her
That's such an important thing. You know, in the intensives, many of the people, most of the people are single, but many are also in relationships. And their challenge is very much the one you just described. It's like getting to the point where you really get behind what you want and what you need. Your deep asks, your
part.
big asks, the ones that we're afraid to do because we sense that that could
Yes.
mean the end of the relationship. And you go to that both feet in space
Mm,
and you really, really ask. It's so brave. It's so hard. We need coaches. We need help. And then when you do that, you know, one of two things can happen. One of three things. One, your partner doesn't get it, but you could sense an openness, and over time they begin to really get it. Two, they get it and you feel seen and safe and like there's hope, and your erotic and romantic sense grows because you've like leapt and they caught you and
mm,
you caught them. Then the third thing that can happen is that they gaslight you, or they just
mhm.
absolutely don't meet you, or they say no, no. And then it's so hard, but you know when you do that. So that's that what you did.
Yeah.
It's such a scary task, but it's like it's the big task in a relationship that isn't feeling right.
Yeah. I feel it was important to me to know I showed up fully and then
Yeah.
could make a choice from there versus kind of running away and then recreating the pattern.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So what
Okay.
you're
So,
describing is like each of those beautiful, brave steps you've taken, the being able to see this part of you that's a treasure. Oh, but I want to say something about that too, but I'll
mm,
say this first. So your ability to name your gifts, your ability to recenter treasuring and leading with those, the way that that transmuted your sexual and romantic attractions,
mm,
led you to somebody really, really wonderful. And then the embracing of all
mm,
these things that you wouldn't have pictured, you would have, you know, following your truth, like all of these pieces is like very role model-y for this path. And
mm.
I, you know, I'm not surprised given who you are, but I love hearing that.
Yeah, I definitely asked the universe, like, really, why, why this? But Ken, it's helped me really let go of so many of the programs about what our goals should be in life, right? To get
Mm,
to this
mm.
certain point and I was feeling so behind when I got divorced, right? Like, I'm just behind in life now.
Yeah,
I'm starting
yeah,
over. And
yeah,
it's like, where
yeah.
does that even come from? Versus I'm happy just as a goal, as opposed to checking all these things off the list.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That
it's been
checklist is so
amazing.
compelling. It's so compelling. I also just want to say one thing about what you said about like safety as a core gift. I don't get it. When people do the work in the intensives and elsewhere around their core gifts, there are certain core gifts that don't necessarily seem like core gifts, and they're around
Mhm.
needs. Like, how is my need for safety? Or other people, my need to be adored. My
Mhm.
need to feel like I can lean on someone. How are those core gifts? Well, basically, when those are needs of yours, they're also things that you need to give to other people. They're like part of a
Yes.
world that you picture, that you envision, that you dream of. So they are soul gifts. They're not just that you
Mhm.
want it. So I think that in our
Mhm.
needs lie so many of our core gifts. Like I'm thinking of one person I know who talked about a need to feel adored. And this is someone who made the people around her feel so seen and given to,
Mhm.
because that was her nature. So, yeah, three
Mhm.
cheers for the core gifts that are actually
I've
about your needs.
this was my next question was around, well, first of all, I wanted to share one of the other ones I identified was appreciation.
Mm, yeah.
And I just want to share with you, Alex like lights up with my appreciation. Like it's
Mm.
such a match and it makes me so delighted. Like he can just receive it and it makes him so happy. And
Uh,
so I wanted to share that with you. And that's a great example of it is, I hadn't experienced that before being able to give it and have it really be received.
yes, yes. And a question around that. Do you find that with this shift where you're now in a place where you honor it, treasure it, and it can be more received, that you're with a partner
Mm.
who's more willing to who gives that back to you more freely?
Yeah.
Has that shifted
Yes.
too, or has that always been something that
Yes.
you?
No, I mean, that's definitely shifted.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes both ways. It really does,
Yeah.
which is a wonderful thing. Like our core
Yeah.
gifts are interdependent. They're not,
Right.
yeah, they're
Yeah, like the
interdependent
little
gifts.
things I do that I don't even think about get
Mm, mm.
noticed, which I really love. Yeah. The other piece about the core gifts is what I noticed in our group was there was a lot of kind of softer skills, if you will.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
you know, goodness and generosity and appreciation and even longing. And it's like you're a magnet for good people.
I
And
think
I'm
that's
just,
true.
curious about that.
I know, somebody said that to me, like, the people that you draw into these intensives, like, I feel like that's the thing I'm most proud of is like you, like, these estimable, wonderful human beings who come into this program. I have to think about what that might be that allows that. I don't know what it is. Maybe a celebration of those qualities that I feel. But thanks for asking that. That's a mystery to
Yeah.
me, but I see that it happens. So I got to think about that.
Well, I think it helps. It helped me to know, like, wow, look at all of these good humans, like
Yeah.
genuine
Yeah.
good humans. There are a lot
Yeah.
of them. And then, the philosopher in me thinks about how much in our world hardens us, and how many people are going out pretending to be confident and getting the buff body or whatever their version is, who are really, kind, good people on the inside and not, it's not been safe to share that,
So true. So true.
right? We have
Yeah.
to look
Yeah.
savvy and together and like we're not affected.
Yeah, yeah, it's really true. And that's, in the very first session of the intensive, I talk about like a radical kindness, like there is no critique allowed. There's actually no advice or
Yes.
suggestions even allowed unless they're specifically requested because we're just so much more
Hmm.
somebody once said in an essay that like the human experience is that we constantly and consistently underestimate how sensitive and vulnerable we are and other people are. And I think that's really, really
Oh,
true. Yeah.
yes, so true. So I know you mentioned the inner mentor process, and I know you have this as a giveaway, a gift for people.
Yes. Yes.
So you spoke about being in the movie theater and going over to the corner and feeling, what is this feeling? The inner mentor process is something that we did consistently throughout the intensive. Can
Yes.
you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I adore this process. So I was in my late 20s and I was invited to create a conference at Columbia University on anything I wanted. And I did
Mm.
it on integrating spirituality into psychotherapy with the LGBTQ community. Anyway, it felt way too big for me. Like, wait, maybe I was early 30s, but it felt way too big. I was terrified. So I did this process where I envisioned a me who could handle that. I stepped into
Mm.
that me and I called out guidance to the me who was trying to do this. And the guidance was so beautiful and the image was so clear that I, remember it vividly. I did it. It gave me guidance. It was fabulous. And then I didn't do it for 30 years because I felt like I
Wow.
didn't deserve or I hadn't earned that self. 30 years later, whatever was going on in my life, I was like, maybe I could do that. And I did it and it wasn't scary and I felt fine. And so then I've done it like pretty much every day since. It is a process that bypasses your inner critic in an astounding way. And I have a big inner critic, as you could imagine by what I just said. But you bypass your inner critic and you tap
Mhm.
into the you that you're meant to be. And you call out guidance and it gets channeled.
Mhm.
It just is channeled. And the
Mhm.
advice is surprising, it's interesting, it is soothing, it is kind, it points out the good. It's like the parent you always kind of dreamed of having. It's really wonderful. So that's this inner mentor practice, which is a gorgeous practice. And in this free gift is an ebook of kind of the 5 keys, which all went viral on Psychology Today around like key intimacy
Mhm.
skills. And then an audio meditation where I guide you in the inner mentor process. And then a downloadable journal where you can write your reflections from your inner
Mhm.
mentor process.
So generous.
Hmm.
I just want to recap. So, my favorite concepts that I've learned are around the core gifts, around these attractions of deprivation and inspiration, and the inner mentor process, like which, in my world is like connecting with source, connecting with your magic
Yes.
and
Yes.
allowing your magic to guide instead of here. And you just have such a beautiful way of guiding it. And the process is so clear. So if people in my world are like, oh, if I can just spend 5 minutes a day connecting to source, this is a perfect way to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And people can go to deeperdatinggifts.com to find that. And I know you'll be providing the link as
Yes.
well. And for people that are interested in this intensive, I have a new one that's going to be starting in mid to late June. And for people that are interested, they can set up a one-on-one exploratory session with
Mhm.
me to explore their core gifts and to see if this feels like a match for
And
them.
is that still on a specific page to set up the call?
Yeah, you just go to deeperdatingintensive.com and
Okay,
there it
awesome.
is. And
I'll
you
put
get to
that.
learn about the intensive as well as schedule an appointment.
Awesome. So we'll put those links in the show notes as well. And as you might imagine, I highly recommend the intensive. Please let
Mm.
Ken know you heard him here. Ken, just thank you for who you are. I just adore you. I so appreciate your work. And anyone who leads transformation honestly should learn your techniques. And we didn't even talk about, like, we went through certification, that you've got a community on the other side of this. I really, this is a tool to add to your toolkit, if nothing else, even if you're not looking for love, though who isn't?
Mm. Mm. Thank you so much, Darla. And it's so mutual. I just absolutely adore you and uh your energy and what you teach, and you're a gift to the world. And I mean that.
Mm, thank you. Thank you for saying yes. Everyone, go get
Mm.
your free gifts, and we'll see you in the next episode.